Hello everyone and welcome back to Is That Brandon Sharing Thoughts, the podcast which I am now sharing on YouTube. So, in today's episode, I am going to just be talking about 3 films I've watched recently because I think for me, I want to vary how I do my content. I don't just want to review things just on video, just on audio, just on written. I kind of just want to vary things up and just how I feel in the moment is the type of content that I'll create, and that's the kind of vibe I'm going for going forwards. So 3 films, 3 completely different storylines, but I'm just going to quickly give you a bit of a rundown of all of them. I'm going to try not to spoil the films just in case you do decide to watch them, but I think all 3 of them are available on Netflix. One of them is a dubbed film, but the other 2 were, I believe, English. So yeah, just 3 interesting films that I've watched as of April, May 2026. So the very first film was called Apex, so APEX. Had no idea what that meant, and it just sounded a bit like a sci-fi kind of film, a bit like, oh god, it's going to be like one of those dragons or something crawling out of somewhere, or some sort of super monster villain thing. But it was actually a very interesting film. And just touching upon the interesting film comment that I just said, what I used to do is I used to have, again, back to my lists, if you've heard my previous episode, I used to have lists of the different films that I wanted to watch and the available platforms that they were available on, whereas now if I see an advert and if I just see a film, I take a screenshot, leave the screenshot on my phone, and as I watch it, I then just put it in my deleted folder. So at least I know, I've watched it, I'll talk about it at some point, or I'll make a video about it, or I'll put a blog post about it. So yeah, we are doing content in just multi ways. So for example, there could be 3 different music videos. One music video review could be as a blog, one music video review could be as a podcast episode, and one music video review could be as a video review where I go, oh, wow, let me just stop you there, like that kind of vibe. So it just depends on how I feel, but I just feel like I want to just still put stuff out there, but just trial out the different platforms, see which one or ones work best for me, and just be able to say, I've made content today and I'm happy that I've been able to do that. So let's go back to the films and stop waffling on about things that are not relevant. So anyway, back to the first film on Netflix, Apex. So I guess the overall vibe of the film is you've got this couple, so boyfriend and girlfriend, or husband and wife, or whatever. He's actually really attractive as well, but they basically were on loads of missions together, or they'd climb loads of mountains together. I think they seemed to be like a bit of a hiking or adventure couple. Like they liked the thrills, they liked the chills, they liked camping and climbing mountains and things like that. And I think for so many years he was the one that wanted to do it. And then as of in the recent years, I think she was kind of the one that was kind of motivating him. I guess he kind of was falling out of love with it, or felt like he was coming to the end of his time doing it. And she was the one that kept motivating him to go, nope, come on, we have to do it. Like, stop being so grumpy and stop being so whatever. And, I think they kind of showed a little snippet of one of their last hikes together. And yeah, you could kind of see him not falling apart, but not as enthusiastic as she was. Whereas she was very motivated, and kind of all in all, towards the beginning of the film, he kind of fell off the cliff, and that was kind of him done. So the whole film was basically about her finding her way and being able to live the moment of being a hiker and being a mountain climber and the rest of it on her own. And yeah, I thought it was going to be a very boring film, and it actually turned out to be a great film, a very good watch, a very easy watch. And it was more of just, what's going to happen next? Oh, who's she going to meet now? Oh, what's happened here? So for me, like I said, initially you had one of the new characters introduced. Can't remember what his name was. He did introduce himself, and she was in the shop buying something, and these 2 weird cowboys or weirdos were kind of just harassing her. And he basically stepped in and said, look, she doesn't need your help. She knows what she's getting. She's here. She's at the checkout. And she basically said thank you, left the shop and thought nothing of it. And then she was looking at something in her truck, and he then pulled up beside her, not knowing obviously it was her, just happened to appear again and, asked her what her intentions were and where she was going. And she said that she was going on some trip. And I think the 2 options he gave her is, do you want the safer route, or do you want the more kind of dangerous, thrill-seeking route? And advised her that you should usually do that sort of thing in pairs. You don't usually do that trekking on your own. Eventually, she kind of, I guess, got freaked out or whatever and drove off. And that was the start of her kind of terror throughout the film. So this guy who seemed to be really nice and obviously protected her in the shop ended up kind of not being weird, but kind of stalking her a little bit. And there were some moments in the film where, again, those two weirdos from the shop had, where this guy had told her to go, she'd gone to. They were obviously friends with him and had also gone to that same place, and they were, brutally doing bad stuff to an animal, and she had to basically sit there and watch. They were being creepy and scary and banging on her caravan and thing. And it was just all very weird. So obviously she left and was completely scarred out by that. And then during one of her treks, she noticed that her backpack and the rest of her items were gone. And then that creepy, weird, nice guy turned up, and it was actually him. So he was messing with her head, trying to scare her, trying to make her leave the forest. And apparently there had been lots of missing people that had just gone missing for, not following the rules of going in pairs. And yeah, the whole film was basically about her trying to run away from him. And eventually the truth telling of the story was that he had been holding all of these people hostage and basically ending their lives. So her mission, I guess, was to kind of befriend him, to get on his side, and he wanted to continue with the climb as well, nominating himself as being her partner. They had all sorts of arguments and fights and disagreements and the rest of it, and eventually they worked together. They climbed up this mountain, and he said, look, don't do anything stupid, don't untie the harness. She managed to untie the harness, and he dropped and he left, and she was able to basically go back to the initial point of where she signed up, to just say, look, I know where all these missing people are. They've all been taken captive and they've all had their lives taken by this man. The man is now no longer with us, so it's safe to go back and basically retrieve those bodies. So I think that was kind of the motive of the film. I don't think necessarily initially that's what the plan was, but obviously because she'd lost the partner and because there were all these weird stories of people going missing and no idea how, then having clocked together, wait, it was him, because he was showing her all these weird, things and stories, and their bodies hanging up in the cage and things, very deep underground. But she was able to gain control by revealing his little secret and, been able to recover all these innocent people from basically the middle of nowhere. So yeah, that was Apex. Like I said, very interesting film. I think you had Charlize Theron and you had the other guy, I can't remember what his name was, Taron Egerton. Yeah, really, really attractive guy, and obviously Charlize looks great as well. She's a lot older than she was when she was in her younger years of film, but she still looks absolutely great. But yeah, great too, as the main cast, and obviously the guy that played her boyfriend or husband, he was also quite attractive as well. So yeah, a great triple threat in terms of the casting that you've got in that film there. Moving on to the second film. So this was a film called The Hunt. Again, very interesting film. I think for me, this is kind of one of those films that's similar to like an escape room film or something along the lines of Squid Games, where it's kind of like a competition, an unknowing competition that these people are involved in. They basically had, they were either, stuck in a room or gagged and then put in some random environment, and it was up to them to try and work out how to get to the end. So the overall storyline of the film is you had this group of people, right, a bunch of men, and this one lady, and they were joking around about having a hunt where they would go and hunt humans, and take them all out and have payback on all of them or whatever. And yeah, one of the ladies was asked what she meant by that, and they were like, well, we're all just joking, we're having a bit of fun, we're just, imagine if we had to put all these people somewhere and get them all to not necessarily fight with each other, but, you know, see who would survive. But I think just generally, it was just one of those things that turned out from being a joke to, well, people actually would be interested in that. So why don't we just get a bunch of people together, and why don't we put them against each other and see who wins? Which is exactly what they did. So all of these individuals that they had put into kind of this game, or they were all tied up, their mouths were locked, with obviously no keys, and they all had to just walk to find either tools or keys or each other. They had to they were basically all being hunted. So the aim of the game was to not get hunted, otherwise they would lose their life basically in this game. So anyway, it was very interesting how the first part of the film was, because you were kind of following this female character and, you know, seeing how she made eyes with this guy, and they helped each other out with the keys. And then they found this shed where the little pig came out, and there was a variety of weapons that they were able to obviously use, and eventually everyone had their voice. They all were able to unlock themselves. But also, those characters that we had focused on within the first few minutes of the film were also then very quickly taken out of the show. So it's almost like, oh, I really want to follow the story of this person. Boom, they're gone. They're out of the game. Who's next? And then eventually we had a blonde lady, and she was the one that we basically were following throughout the entire film. The people that she was networking with, the people that she was befriending. You know, she knew there was some weird mission or something going on, so she basically did not trust anybody. And she managed to get to the end, and she did manage to win and, you know, outdo this group of people. But, yeah, I think it was the whole film was the people that they had put in the game, or to fight against each other, they were the people that were making the stories up about how these people are so horrible, and that they want to torture people, and that they want to see people fighting against each other, and they're going to be creating some controversial thing, when actually all it was just genuinely a joke. And then these people thought, well, actually, a lot of people are talking about it. Why don't we actually become the group of people that get people to fight each other? Or, you know, all these conspiracies about us, why don't we actually make them come true? Which is what they did. So, yeah, in the end, there's just lots of fights, lots of, you know, characters that were not being genuine, and lots of like actors and things in places that just didn't seem right and that were not right, according to this lady, who was obviously able to suss it all out until the very end. And, you know, for example, you had an older guy who, he wasn't with the bad people, but he was made to feel as if he was with the bad people, so she took him out, and then unknowingly at the end realised, oh god, he was actually one of the innocent ones. And then, yeah, there was a nice little cat fight at the end to basically bring the film to an end. But yeah, she was the winner, and it's just very interesting to see the journey of, you know, how that character went from having no idea how she got to where she did, to then understanding, oh, maybe it's because of, you know, things I was saying online, or I'm not going to take anything back, to then obviously all these characters losing themselves in the game. Some of them had a second chance to survive and still couldn't get through. You know, there was one lady, she had her legs stuck in poles in the floor. She got carried out, and then 2 seconds later, she got shot. So, you know, she had a second chance to actually survive, but she wasn't able to. And, yeah, second time, she was unlucky. So, yeah, like I said, very interesting film. Very, you know, not really sure what's going to happen kind of film. I think that's kind of the best way to explain it, because you're following one character, they then go out of the game, and then you end up following another character, and then they end up... I think I did that about 6 times. I was following a character, and I was like, oh, they're a really nice character. Boom, they're gone. They just got shot in the head with a bow and arrow. Or, you know, they just had like a bomb or something blow up next to their leg. So it was all just very... I didn't really know who to follow. And then as soon as I saw this lady, I was like, right, she's it. She is that girl. She is that woman who's going to, you know, sort it all out and sort those bad people out who were not bad people, until they decided to just jump on their own trend of it's actually not a conspiracy theory, it's what we genuinely believe in and now want to do. So yeah, that was The Hunt. Very different to Apex, but yeah, still a really, really good film, and hopefully I didn't ruin it. But yeah, this blonde lady who does seem to be a fighter does get to the end and does survive. So, you know, you're not going to lose her halfway through and then have to follow someone else. You do lose a few blondes, but yeah, not this one. She managed to survive all the way till the end. And the third and final film that I'm going to be reviewing for this podcast episode is a film called Brick. So I think this is the one that was dubbed. I'm not sure what language it was in. Obviously, I watched the film in English with kind of their mouths moving at a different time, but I don't know if it was a Hungarian originally or Bulgarian originally or Germany or whatever it was. But it was still a really, really good film. Again, another one of those complicated ones that makes you think. I love films that make you think, because you don't just sit there and it's like, oh, it's a love story. Oh, look, someone died. Oh, look, they got a new lover. Oh, they got married and they got a dog. Woo. It was almost like again, you don't know who to trust. You don't know who to believe. You don't know who the good cast are. You don't know who's playing against who. I mean, towards the very beginning, you had this couple. They were having an argument and she wanted to leave. She wanted both of them to go to Paris, and they were in this building of flats or, like a hotel. And somehow overnight, outside of every single door and window was just brick. And that's basically the whole understanding of the film. So you meet this couple. She was really, really pretty as well. She obviously wanted to take her boyfriend to Paris. And if they would have gone that day before, they wouldn't have got stuck in the bricks. It's almost like she's not very happy with him. And then they use all these tactics to try and work out the puzzle. So they throw loads of metal and spoons and stuff, and that ends up cutting the boyfriend on the way back when they get thrown off of the wall. They knocked through the neighbours, and they were both basically very high on some sort of substances, with the boyfriend almost being taken out by this boy next door. And then, they met a load of other variety of characters throughout the film. You had like a granddad and granddaughter. So, again, granddad kind of had a bullet go through his head, so that took him out. The granddaughter wanted to stay and work out some puzzle that someone else who had lost their life in the game had created and were taken out of the game for. So it was all just very weird. And I think what the initial couple realised is, because this guy that had lost his life to some creepy neighbour that he was stuck in a room with, he had eventually worked out how to get out of the brick with all his engineering skills, and this other guy just obviously got jealous and decided to just take him out. And then the granddaughter was part of that little scene, so she was taken out because she, I guess, was also too smart, and for some reason they believed it was safer inside than outside, so it just caused chaos, and there was all sorts of drama, and people dying left, right and centre. But in the end, they had CCTV footage of the engineer trying to work out these tactics, being taken out, and him working out there was a certain amount of light flickers to work out what the code was. So this lovely couple were obviously then working out all these different codes. They started as a 2, and they basically ended the film as a 2 as well. So, they had lots of other characters they met along the way, but it was more just to help the two of them get further on, or to have extra brains to kind of push them forwards. So, I think this couple ended up making it out. And again, it was just a very weird film. It was kind of, you just didn't really know which way the film was going to go. It's such a simple concept as well. The wall had just turned into brick that you couldn't get through, you couldn't punch, you couldn't throw things in. They were only able to go through the wall at certain times once they'd put those flashing codes in, which is why one of the other characters lost their life, because she kind of was half in the wall and half not, and she got taken out. So she basically got eaten by the wall and died. They were basically the 3 films that I'd watched recently. So Apex, the more climbing film, the kind of adventure film. The Hunt, which was basically a bunch of conspiracy theorists creating a theory that actually ended up becoming true because those people jumped on that trend. And then Brick, where you had a lovely couple who should have gone to Paris, decided to stay at home for one more day, meaning that the whole room and walls were just covered in brick. And they ended up escaping, but at the life and at the cost of many other people who were in that building at that time. So, that's it for my podcast for today. So that's 3 incredible films that I've watched. Like I said, all 3 different type of genres. I want to say they're not necessarily a different genre. It's more just, the Apex one was more of an adventure thriller kind of. Is she going to get away from this really scary man who was nice at the beginning and then just turned weird? The Hunt was, I guess, more of that same sort of thriller. It wasn't necessarily a murder film. It was more of a, can these people escape? Who's going to escape? And at what cost are they going to be able to escape at? And then Brick, same sort of thing. They're all kind of trapped in. That was more like an escape room like a brick escape room? And again, would the initial characters we met have got out? And again, at to the cost and to the losing lives of who, basically. So I think all of the films were to do with losing lives and, you know, braving the next chapter, or being able to get out or move on to the next stage without those, you know, great characters. But it was just whether or not they were going to do that and how they were going to do that. So yeah, if you did enjoy my podcast episode, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you've got any ideas or suggestions for future podcast episodes, then let me know. Drop me a comment or reach me on social media, and I will be happy to try and jump on as many ideas or thoughts as possible. So until then, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and goodbye.